Thank you for joining us on this episode of Tax Matters as we all joyfully move into the 8th month of the year 2022. TikTok. The year 2022 is going. Ardent viewers of Tax Matters would know that we have an ongoing business, and that is helping to keep our dear viewers in particular and taxpayers in general on their toes with regard to the decision of the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the Joint Tax Board to embark upon full-scale enforcement on defaulters who failed to take advantage of the amnesty program VATES, which ran from July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. This post-VATES enforcement is consequent upon the expiry of the grace period brought about by VATES. And what have we done so far in this new series? We have refreshed the memory of our viewers with regards to how we helped in our own little way back in 2017 in letting the public know what VATES was all about. In this new series, we have had as guests Mr. Albert Folorenshaw, Managing Partner, Pedable Professional Services, who spoke on VATES and what the authorities mean by post-VATES. And last episode, we began sharing with you the thoughts of Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, Fiscal Policy Partner and Africa Tax Lead at PwC, on the same issue. Mr. Oyedele's interview is our menu on today's episode of Tax Matters. Enjoy it.
Let's go taxing. Hand in hand, cheerfully. We go taxing as birds of a feather that flock around to make a living. With our signals drawn on the field, we go to pay our taxes cheerfully, knowing that our lives come to naught without us taxing together, to build our homestead, to mend our lives anew, to make our lives whole. Let's go taxing, hand in hand cheerfully, drawing our strength like a broom that breaks knots, for taxing together makes us wholesome.
Mr. Oyedele, thank you for joining us on Tax Matters.
Thank you, Amaka. It's my pleasure.
Sir, you were among those who were there from the beginning during the introduction and implementation of VATES in Nigeria in 2017. Please share with us the origin of VATES.
VATES, by the way, was an acronym for Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme. Essentially, it's a tax amnesty which says whatever you haven't done well before regarding the payment of your taxes and filing of returns, please come forward and do it voluntarily. So I'll say the origin was the Constitution itself. The 1999 Constitution has a provision that every citizen has to declare their income honestly and pay their taxes promptly to the appropriate authority. But the reality is that doesn't always happen. So therefore, to try and help people to discharge that civic obligation, the tax amnesty was introduced. And I have to also say it wasn't the first time that we were doing something like that in Nigeria. So we've had instances in the past where FRS, for example, had introduced tax amnesty, of course, limited to taxes collected by the FRS. And we've seen some states, including Lagos State, where they had done similar tax amnesty before. And across the world, it's common. Many countries have done this. Many even do it more frequently than Nigeria. I think you probably even find more countries where this have been done than where it hasn't been done at all. Like Indonesia. Indonesia, in terms of the size of the economy, tax compliance fairly better than Nigeria, but still some gaps. And their president took particular interest in driving the tax amnesty. Did his own tax compliance and went public to say, Mr. President, I've done the right things. Everybody has to fall in line, otherwise, and then there was also South Africa. Kenya has done a couple of tax amnesty, and some countries in Europe, as well. So yeah, fairly a very common thing around the world.
Now, what period did VATES cover and for what tax types?
So, yes, so VADES itself, in terms of the remediation scheme, covered a period of 9 months. 9 months from the scheme was launched in June 2017, and it was to take effect from 1st of July 2017 till the end of March 2018. So that's 9 months.
Okay. So what were the taxes, VATs covered?
So VATs covered all taxes because there's tax evasion in all areas of taxes, right? Whether it's stamp duties, whether it's value-added tax, whether it's PAYE under Personal Income Tax Act, whether it's CIT, PPT, all the taxes have issues, some more than the others. So for the taxes covered, it was all taxes. Of course, I have to say that in the design phase of that project, there was an expectation that the bulk of this would come from the major taxes. So you will not be expecting that a lot of people will come and make declaration on business premises levy. Whereas for personal income tax, I think actually we were expecting the most from personal income tax, because at the time, the number of people in the tax net were barely 20% of the working population, which meant that you were expecting so many people to come forward. Unfortunately, it wasn't as successful, but it was maybe just some progress made.
So it covered, for both the federal taxes and the state taxes?
Yes. So it covered federal taxes and state, in fact, local government taxes as well. So even though the initiative around VADE was from the Ministry of Finance, so it was in no time it became a national project where Ministry of Finance had to involve not only the FRS but also the Joint Tax Board. The Joint Tax Board, of course, you couldn't call the 774 local government. It would be impossible to even have a meeting if you call 774 local governments. So the state internal revenue services were meant to take care of the state as well as the local government under them. So it became a national project, which meant that the taxes covered were both federal taxes, state taxes, and local government taxes.
Interesting. So what were the components or the features, if you like, of VATs in Nigeria?
Yeah, because it's not a routine thing that you do every day, right? So we had to spend time thinking about the end-to-end process. So first was you needed to have a tax identification number, whether you're an individual or a company. If you had a tax identification number, it means you'd be most likely paying taxes before, but you were not paying correctly. If you didn't have, it means you were not paying before. So there was a provision under the scheme to fast track the process of getting TIN, but everybody needed to get a TIN to be able to do the amnesty. Number two, there was a need for you to identify what taxes you needed to remediate. Again, some people will have maybe just personal income tax to worry about. Some people will need to worry about more taxes, like companies may have to do so many. Then the next thing was to think about the period you needed to cover, right? So again, that was pretty much at the discretion of the person making the declaration. But in principle, many of us just advise people to do about 6 years, because in many of the tax laws, you had a statute of limitation for 6 years. Once you have done that, the next thing is to calculate the tax payable. If you had the knowledge, you did it yourself. If you didn't, you had two options. One is you could get a consultant to do it for you. Of course, it won't be for free, so they charge you for it. So let's say you can't calculate it, you don't have money to get a consultant. The tax authority says our doors are wide open. Come forward, give us the information, we'll help you do the calculation. So, and once you've done the calculation, the next thing is to make payments. If you had all the money to pay, just go and pay and move on to the next phase. If you didn't have all the money, which was very common for many of the taxpayers, you could apply for payment in installments over a period of time. Now, once payment has been done and completed, then you will then receive a special clearance certificate. This was made particularly for VADES, yes. And that is now like your certificate that says you have done the right thing, you will not be prosecuted, no. In fact, some people had concerns about what if somebody now reports me to EFCC after doing tax compliance. So there was some level of assurance that that wasn't going to happen if you did the right thing. So I'll say pretty much that was really the end-to-end process involving in VADES.
All right, sir. Now, with the information available to tax authorities pre-VADES, was VADES really necessary at all? Why did we need VADES in the first place?
That's an interesting question. You're right. The tax authorities have enormous amount of information, right? But imagine that there's someone who is evading tax. It means that the taxman didn't know anything about the person. In fact, there are people who didn't have TIN. So if you wanted to rely on the information available to the taxman, you just keep focusing on the guys who are already within the tax net. You will miss out on the opportunity of bringing in those who are outside of the tax net, because for many of them, the taxman has no visibility. So even though the taxman had good information, it wasn't sufficient. We needed more. So I'll say, yeah, VADE was still necessary in that context.
All right. Okay. Now, VADE was for a period of 9 months initially, then extended further by 3 months. Now, looking at this, was VADE actually meant to be a one-off exercise, or a continuous process? We ask this because we wonder why this sudden move to revive VADE 4 years after the window closed.
Okay. Yeah, so the initial period for the VADE scheme itself, for people to come forward and do the right thing, was 9 months. That 9 months was actually also divided into two. There was July to December 2017. If you did your remediation within that period, you got all the waivers and everything that was promised. If you did it after that, you didn't get the full waiver of penalty and interest. So it was further extended by 3 months, but that 3 months is really to say to you, well, of course, even if we didn't extend it, nobody stops you from coming forward anytime you like. But the benefits that were guaranteed under the VADE scheme were not going to be extended beyond the period of the VADES. So in a way, yeah, I'll say that it was originally for 9 months and then extended to 12 months.
So I asked, why the sudden move to revive VADES?
Yes. I wouldn't say that it's been revived. So when the scheme was designed, right? So imagine that you have a tax amnesty and you know that if you don't come forward, nothing will happen. Most people won't come forward. So the way to get people to come forward is to put the carrot and the stick. The carrot is if you come forward, you get this benefit. Stick is if you fail to come forward, we use this stick on you. So those stick were prosecution, penalty, interest, even criminal prosecution as well, including you could go to jail. So those things were supposed to kick in immediately after VADES. Once the window closed, we're supposed to start. But, as usual in Nigeria, everybody went to sleep as if it wasn't. In fact, for many of us who tried to convince a few people to comply, they came back to us and said, well, we told you nothing was going to happen. It was painful to that extent. So what is now happening is something that should have happened like 5 years ago. But they'll say better late than never. So I don't think they are reviving VADES. They're just saying that based on the information that we have, if you were not tax compliant and you didn't take advantage of VADES, we're coming after you. And I think it's right to do that, especially because we cannot continue in the trend that we have now. So our debt is rising faster than GDP. Our debt service cost is rising faster than our revenue. So which means if that trend is not reversed, you will soon have a country that is bankrupt, and that's not what we pray for. So whatever we can do to make everybody pay their fair share of tax is always the right thing to do. I do understand the sentiment about the second leg of this conversation, which is that what are they even doing with the money? But that's a separate conversation. It's not for the tax authority to address. is for the political authorities to address. So what they want to do, partly based on their publication, the public notice, and also some conversations that I've had with them informally, is that, well, we had these raids, it wasn't as successful as we wanted, and we know that there's still a lot of evasion. So it's not even right also for a country to make declarations about what you want to do and not follow through. Once you get to a point where your citizens and everybody within your territory take you for granted, then you are walking towards a failed state. We can't afford for that to happen. So when government says this is what we'll do, this is the law supporting us, we need to follow through. It's late, but like I said, never late, better late than never. So what they want to do now is revive the consequences, the stick aspect of it. I do not think that at the moment they are planning to open another window for people to come and do raids and get waiver of penalty and interest. So it's more around the stick for the consequences.
I agree with you on that.
I'm a very busy man. My business involves a lot of traveling and I interface with lots and lots of people and organizations. Tax compliance used to be a big drag on my business. It was time consuming and very costly. But now, no more. Introducing the FIRS Tax Pro Max, the truly fully end-to-end tax administration solution for companies' income tax, value-added tax, petroleum profits tax, and all other tax types. For fast, efficient, and convenient end-to-end tax experience, log on to www.taxpromax.firs.gov.ng. Tax Pro Max has turned things around for me. It is fast, user-friendly, and cost-effective. FIRS, making tax administration as easy as ABC.
It is always a pleasure talking and listening to Mr. Oyedele. We round off by sharing with you what we consider as the high point of the interview. Why post-VATs? Do we really need post-VATs?
I see the point. So FIRS introduced Tax Pro Max a couple of years ago. People can now file their returns online. Some of the state tax authorities like Lagos, I think Kaduna, maybe Edo, some of them too, you can file returns online. So a lot of the taxes are filed manually. Even for the ones that you file online, you don't have all the information about every single person. So what many countries would do is what I call tax intelligence. So if you buy a car, you need to go to the government to register it. If you buy a plot of land, government will give you the certificate of occupancy. If you want to travel abroad, government gives you the international passports. When you want to buy FX, government will sell it to you. So if you import goods to sell, government will clear it. So almost everything we do, there is the involvement of government. If you open bank account, government gives you BVN, you know. So, but then you can show up at the tax office today and pay 5,000 naira and they'll give you tax clearance certificate, even though your car could be a bulletproof car of 70 million naira. So that whole process of connecting the dots to see whether people are paying the right amount of tax is not entirely within the tax system, whether it's FIRS, Pro Max, or whatever it is. You needed to connect the tax ecosystem with the rest of the economy to piece the intelligence to know who is paying the right amount of tax. So to that extent, I'll say there's still a lot of merit in what the FIRS and the JTB are trying to do now to resuscitate not only just the scheme itself, because I don't think they're going to open the window again, but the enforcement of it. I do think that now the tax authorities have more information than they did in 2017. They've signed a number of international agreements and treaties, including Common Reporting Standard, where more than 100 countries around the world are exchanging data with Nigeria. We've also seen, some moves around data for tax, where government is trying to connect. You have shares in the capital market, you have asset management, investments, all manner of things, connecting it together. And we've seen better collaboration between the states and the federal under the platform of the Joint Tax Board. So all of these are speaking to the fact that it is becoming increasingly difficult to hide for people who are evading taxes. The reason why tax compliance is high in many countries around the world is not because they are more patriotic to their country than Nigerians are. In fact, I find Nigerians are extremely patriotic. Really? Yes. So they can yab their country and their leaders, right? But deep inside of them, even when they relocate abroad, they really crave coming back to Nigeria. They love the country. We all wish things could work better. So the reason why many countries find compliance rates to be higher is because people are afraid of being caught. And they know that the taxman has information. You know, while we're working on VAT, there was a white man who reached out to me. Was a CEO of one of the, actually the biggest asset and wealth management company in the world. So this guy reached out to me and said, you know, Taiwo, I need to come and talk to you. I see you on TV and talking about VAT. So the guy came to our office. We sat down and he said to me that he was the CEO of this company in the Americas and I think also in the Caribbean. So he had worked in some regions where he was the CEO. Now he's in charge of the Middle East, Africa, and I think maybe Europe. So he came to Nigeria and came to see me and he said to me that, Taiwo, we manage assets in trillions of dollars worldwide. And some of our biggest customers are Nigerians. So those guys have a process that they had designed, which was voluntary. They did it on their own for tax declaration. And the Nigerian guys were not declaring taxes. So the guy came to me and said, this is a good thing you guys are doing. I think I make a lot of money. He said, let me share a secret with you. He said, you need to tell government to try and get some intelligence. Don't focus on everybody. You just need like top 500 people. Get some intelligence about them and write them a letter individually. So somebody will say, dear Taiwo, we are aware that you have 4 bank accounts. The balance as of these days is 50 million naira. We are aware you have 2 houses in the UK, you have one in Dubai and one in the US. We have not seen your tax returns, but we know that you are patriotic and you should come forward. Based on our preliminary analysis, our estimation of tax, you know, imagine you get that letter, eh? See, the government knows everything that happens. Now you jump for. So I told government so that let's do this thing that has worked in other countries. By the time they were implementing it in Nigeria, we thoroughly messed it. You know, they wrote to me too, that was an evade. I mean that I told them, I just got one letter. It says, dear Taiwo, we have not been paying taxes. So I said, this is not what I told you guys. I said, how can you accuse me of not paying taxes? They said, well, they went to Corporate Affairs Commission. They saw my name, you know, as a director in 2 companies. And I said, okay, did you ask Lagos State? I'm resident in Lagos. They said they did not ask Lagos. I said, this is the problem. So one of the billionaires that I know is tax compliant in Nigeria. There are not many of them. Called me and was so angry. He said, Taiwo, I got a letter. Can you imagine these people accusing me? I just said to him, see, they wrote to me. I said, okay. So if they wrote to you, then I shouldn't worry. Anyway, the long and short of it is, you know, there was a lot more we could have done. Maybe now is the time that we're waking up to do the right thing. So I wish the authorities all the best.
There you are. Based on the information that the tax authorities have, if you were not tax compliant and if you did not take advantage of VAT, they are coming for you. It is interesting what Mr. Oyedele said about the utilization of tax revenue. Yes, indeed, that is not the remit. That is not the job of the taxman. Rather, it is the job of your counselor, my counselor, your governor, my governor, our ministers, our president. That is where we draw the curtains on today's episode of Tax Matters. Thank you for watching. See you next week.